Number 10. Your clothes would turn against you. Your sheepskin cloak freezes stiff before the sun even rises. In a Viking winter, wet clothes weren't just uncomfortable, they were dangerous. Wool absorbed snow and sweat, froze into stiff plates and clung to your skin like ice armour. The more you moved, the worse it got. Villagers layered tunics, wrapped their legs in wool, and stuffed their shoes with straw. At Birka, archaeologists found remains of makeshift insulation, proof of the fight to hold in heat. But once that straw got damp, it lost its purpose. Circulation dropped, toes went numb and stayed that way. Inside the longhouse, warmth barely existed. The hearth smoked more than it burned. The floor was packed dirt, often frozen. No one stripped down, even to sleep. You wore the same wet cloak for days, hoping body heat would soften the edges. But the real problem started when the wind picked up. Number 9. Frostbite was just a morning routine. By sunrise, you've already lost feeling in your hands. In the Norse world, frostbite didn't stop anyone. Fingers turned white, ears cracked, and cheeks split open in the wind. You wrapped a cloth around the wound and got on with the day. Archaeological evidence from Greenland shows signs of extreme cold exposure, with bone deformities that hint at chronic tissue damage. But in the sagas, injuries like this are rarely mentioned. They weren't worth talking about. They were expected. Mittens were rare. Knitting didn't appear in Scandinavia until later centuries, so most wore crude hide gloves if they had anything at all. Tasks like chopping wood or herding animals were done barehanded in sub-zero temperatures. If the skin broke, infection followed, but not antibiotics. And this was all before stepping outside. Number 8. Your only water was frozen or filthy. You're surrounded by snow, but dying of thirst anyway. Clean water wasn't a given. Melting snow over a weak fire took time, fuel, and labour. Most villagers relied on wells, but many froze solid in the coldest weeks. Streams slowed to slush, and drinking directly from them risked illness. Historical sources and excavation sites reveal the presence of shallow wells, often dug near settlements. In winter, these had to be broken open daily. Buckets cracked, ropes froze, and the water at the bottom, sometimes contaminated by animal runoff or rotting organic matter. Drinking boiled snow meant waiting hours for a cup, and wood for the fire was scarce. No one wasted it just for water unless absolutely necessary. Many drank beer instead, brewed weak enough to hydrate without spoilage, but even that required planning, grain, and warmth. 3 things you didn't always have. Hydration wasn't a habit, it was a gamble. Number 7. Food didn't just run out, it fought back. That stew on the fire, it's made from last month's leftovers. By midwinter, the fresh meat was gone. The animals were too lean to slaughter, and anything stored had already started to rot or freeze solid. Salted fish, dried seal, or the occasional reindeer shoulder were common, but you didn't eat for taste, you ate for survival. The Norse preserved food with smoke, salt and drying racks. But these methods failed if the weather turned or rodents got there first. Larders weren't airtight. Rats, mould and thawing could spoil weeks of supplies overnight. In Iceland, sagas mention eating seaweed, moss and sometimes bark mixed into porridge. Bones were boiled multiple times to extract every bit of fat. Fermented shark, known as hakal, became a staple in later centuries, not because it was delicious, but because it didn't rot as fast. If your stomach turned, that was your problem. Food poisoning was common, and no one stopped the fire just because someone collapsed near it. Number 6. Sickness spread faster than heat. You're trapped indoors with the same people, same air, same coughs. A Viking longhouse might hold 10 to 15 people through the winter. That meant shared sleeping space, shared meals, shared air, and no one had heard of germs. The hearth sat at the centre of the house, often unventilated. Smoke filled the rafters, coating everything in soot, weakening lungs already gasping in the cold. Archaeological digs show that even children developed chronic respiratory damage from constant exposure. There was no soap, no sanitation, and no quarantine. If one person got sick, and someone always did, it was only a matter of days before everyone started showing symptoms. Coughs turned into fever, fevers turned into something worse, and the worst part, you couldn't even open a window to escape it. Number 5. The bathroom was the snow. You needed to go, but there was no outhouse, no seat, no privacy. In Viking villages, there were no dedicated bathrooms. In some larger settlements like Hedeby or Ribe, archaeologists have found crude latrine pits lined with wood, but in small rural villages, you simply walked outside. In winter, that meant trudging through snow with your legs wrapped in frozen wool, hoping not to slip or freeze mid-squat. Most waste was left just beyond the longhouse perimeter, but with livestock, smoke and neighbours all packed in tight, that waste often ended up in footpaths, frozen into the ground, then thawed and refrozen with each passing day. Sanitation wasn't a concept. Disease thrived in silence. Women, children and elders often waited too long out of fear of the cold or animals lurking nearby. That meant bladder infections, gut issues, and even frostbite in sensitive places. If you were lucky, you made it back inside before anything froze that wasn't supposed to, but staying indoors came with its own risks. Number 4. The smoke slowly took your breath. It never left. Not the fire, not the smoke, not the sting in your lungs. Every Viking longhouse had a hearth, but few had chimneys. The smoke from the fire rose into the rafters, lingered, and drifted back down. Over time, everything became coated in soot. The beams, the bed straw, your skin. Anthropological studies of Viking-era skeletons show high levels of chronic respiratory damage, even in children. Some had blackened lung tissue and shortened lifespans, not from battle or starvation, but from decades of smoke inhalation. The fire wasn't optional. Without it, you froze. But with it, you coughed all night and woke up choking. Eyes burned, throats closed. There was no ventilation, no air filter, and nowhere else to sleep. The longer the winter dragged on, the harder it became to breathe. Number 3. You couldn't sleep without fear. Every noise could mean fire, wolves, or something worse. A Viking longhouse didn't have doors that locked. The outer wall was a thin barrier of timber, earth, and turf. No glass, no alarm, just hope. Wolves sometimes came close, scavenging for scraps or dragging off livestock. Bears were rare, but not unheard of. Fires sometimes reignited in the night from a log settling wrong. If no one noticed in time, the thatch above would catch. In a structure packed with smoke and fur, it didn't take long for disaster to spread. And then there was the human danger. Winter stress pushed people to the edge. Fights broke out. Grudges from the summer boiled over. Alcohol flowed, tempers flared, and justice often waited until spring. If someone snapped, there were no guards to call. No neighbours far enough away not to hear, but too far to intervene. You didn't sleep deeply, you slept lightly, and prayed the sun would rise. Number 2. If you didn't work, you didn't eat. Rest wasn't survival. Labour was. Even in the deepest cold, every able body was expected to contribute. Men hunted, fished, chopped wood, and repaired tools. Women prepared food, tended to animals, made clothes and kept the fire going. Children gathered twigs, fetched water, and helped watch younger siblings. No one rested just because it hurt. If you couldn't keep up, from illness, age, or injury, you became a burden. And in some Norse sagas, burdens didn't always make it to spring. The communal mindset of Viking society ran deep, but it had limits. When supplies dwindled, priorities shifted. Elders sometimes volunteered to stay behind. Others were quietly ignored. In survival mode, sentiment came second. Everyone had a job, and every job was the difference between making it or being remembered. Number 1. Spring didn't guarantee survival. The sun returned, but that didn't mean you were safe. By late winter, most stores were gone. Salted fish, dried meat, grain, even bark and moss, everything had been stretched thin. When the thaw came, it revealed what the snow had hidden. Spoiled barrels, dead livestock, sometimes even buried neighbours. Spring meant work. Soil had to be prepared, tools reforged, nets repaired, boats mended. The few weeks of rest were over, and the hunger didn't stop. Malnutrition led to infections. Teeth broke, old wounds reopened. And sometimes, after months of holding on, your body simply gave out. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to watch another one here.